Well, Nova, thank you so much for joining us on the Rising Beyond podcast today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, so we were talking offline, and I feel like we could talk for days. And
Absolutely.
right today, we are going to look at the kind of typical pattern of a narcissistic relationship and
Mhm.
actually how that looks as you go on in the relationship and then post separation, because I think there's not a lot talked about post separation, about how the love bombing, then the devaluation and discard looks after the fact. So I feel like this is your wheelhouse. So can you kind of share what is that kind of like blueprint of a narcissist in these relationships?
Okay, so a narcissist can be anyone, Sybil. So a narcissist can be your boss, it can be someone you work with, it can be a parent, a friend, a next door neighbor. But they all use the same MO, modus operandi. So I'm just going to talk about intimate relationships, but you can apply the same techniques, strategies, really, to any kind of relationship with a narcissist. So typically the narcissist will love bomb you. Okay, so
Mhm.
there's a couple of reasons they do that. Now, number one is they need to hook you in fast. Okay, they will make your head spin. They will be so over the top in everything, and the reason they need to be over the top is so that you have this whirlwind where you become hooked on the person they're pretending to be, and that you're enmeshed with them before you see who they really are. So they need to
Mhm.
be over the top. If it's an intimate partner, text in the morning, good morning, sweetheart, sweet dream texts at night, and flowers. I know that's typical of your normal honeymoon phase, but with the narcissist, it is grandiose. Any victim will tell you it is so much more, and that's to hook you in quick. So that's the first reason. The second reason is because they've got to be bigger and better than everyone else in everything they do. And
Mhm.
this is all about refuting that internal shame, because NPD is really a shame-based disorder. So wooing, the target is no different to anything else. They've got to be bigger and grander. So they hook you in, they get you hooked on that person who's put you on your own personal pink cloud. And you think you've met your soulmate, you think you've won the jackpot. But the narcissist's end goal is to make it about themselves, because one of their defining traits is not having any empathy. So that love bombing stage is simply a tool. It is
Mhm.
manipulative. And once they know they've got you hooked, and they know, they have this innate ability to know you're not going anywhere, you're going to be trauma bonded to them, that's when the mask drops. Okay, that's when the victim sees who they really are. Not
Mhm.
not in all in one big hit, because if they dropped the mask for good, in other words, if they were 100% abusive, it would be easy to leave.
Yeah.
So they will start to devalue you, which means the victim is going to be confused. So devaluing will be strategies like gaslighting, blame shifting. They'll project all of their horrible traits onto their victim, and they will replace uh, wanting to be with you all the time with giving you this silent treatment, never being contactable. And of course, this confuses the victim. They've
Mhm.
been on this pink cloud, and all of a sudden they've been unceremoniously booted off, and they don't understand why. And the narcissist slowly over time conditions them to believe that it's their fault. So
Yeah.
the victim's forever trying to get back the person that made them feel so good and gave them that huge dopamine release. In other words, they became addicted to this chemical cocktail as well as psychologically. So their boundaries are being eroded away over time, and their ability to trust their instincts. And the narcissist at the same time is getting bored.
Mm-hmm.
The victims lost their shine. They're not a shiny new toy anymore. They're flawed because they're questioning the narcissist, which means they're not perfect anymore. They lied because they didn't remain the person who worshipped the narcissist in the beginning. I know that's confusing, but they think the victim is the one who lied because they stopped worshipping them. And of course, the victim stopped, loving that person or being so, amazed to be in their company, I guess, grateful because they were being abused. But that doesn't matter to the narcissist that you're reacting to their abuse. It just means that you're not worshipping them anymore. So that makes you flawed, and it makes you the liar because you changed in their eyes. So they become bored, and they start looking elsewhere. They've always got another source on the go. They can't be with just one person. Now, the love bomb, devalue, discard cycle is pretty, I guess that's pretty well known in terms of the narcissistic abuse recovery community. But you can be discarded if you stay with the narcissist for 30 years.
Yeah.
It's just that this cycle happens over and over and over again, with the love bombing simply being days they're not abusing you. So even if you stay with them, you will be discarded. It's in the stars the day you meet them, because you will get boring and they will need a full tank of narcissistic supply. They will need someone who is brimming with supply because they haven't yet been abused. So the narcissist discards their victim, normally in the most horrific way, to punish them for not being perfect and to make them go crazy trying to work out what's happened and why they're discarding them on their birthday or when they're sick or when their mother's died. That's to punish you, but also to cement them in your memory, so that at those times, such as Christmas or birthday, you won't be thinking about those times in years to come. You will be thinking about them. They implant themselves in your memory, and they want you to provide a really good reason with your crazy behavior as to why they had to go to the new soulmate who's making them feel so amazing. You make it okay in the eyes of society for them to move on so quickly. So it's so calculated, it's horrific, and it's sadistic.
Yeah. And I think what people, most of you all listening know this, but what your friends and family don't know, and it's even when they know, they don't want to know, that this is willful, purposeful behavior. It is done systematically on purpose. And I know a lot of people are like, don't want to believe there are so many people in our world that are like this. But unfortunately, there are. And so when you get friends and family, they're like, well, giving him or her the benefit of the doubt, right? It's because thinking about how like rampant this is and how you've been harmed, that's really scary to people. It rocks their worlds.
Yeah.
And I was also thinking, people ask me all the time of like, well, when did the abuse start? And I'm like, day one, that first conversation, that first date, day one, the abuse starts. And I think you alluded to that with how the love bombing starts. It is day one.
Yeah, that's what I meant, Sybil, by it's written in the stars. The day you meet them, the end is inevitable. And it's so hard for victims to wrap their head around. But as sure as the sun comes up tomorrow, and victims are normally have the most trouble trying to come to terms with this, because they think the next person is they're going to change for them. They're going to get all the nice side of them. And that's why I want to make it so clear that as sure as the sun comes up tomorrow, they will engage in this cycle. That they have to, because the love bombing stage is not sustainable. It's a tool, and they're only after the end goal, which is to make it all about them. And your pain, your reactions, good or bad, I think bad, your anger, your pain is actually more fulfilling for them, makes them feel powerful. Your reactions are what fuels them. So they have to end that love bombing. It has to end. And then they've got to start abusing you to get all of those reactions. And because you're not perfect anymore.
Yeah. And so this is why. So, and I had a couple thoughts. So one, the discard doesn't always mean they've left you or they've cheated on you.
Yeah.
It is within the relationship. This can happen over and over and over again.
Yes. Yeah.
And when you have left, it still needs to be about them. They still need to feel your pain. Welcome post-separation abuse.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. If you're the one to leave, you will find that most of the time it's because they've predicted that the abuse has escalated right before the end. And this, of course, this is we can't generalize this to every single time, but for the most part, the narcissist knows. They know when you are ready to go. They know intimately when they're starting to lose control of you. So they will either ramp up the abuse so that you go, and then they can manipulate everyone else to say, well, look, she left me, she's the one that walked out on this relationship. And of course, no one else has seen most of the time that abusive side, because it's behind closed doors. It's very covert. So the abuse escalates because they preempted you're going to leave. Or if you do just go out and they really haven't predicted that, they will still manipulate the perceptions of others to make it your fault. You're doing the wrong thing, essentially. And the post-separation abuse will happen whether they discard you or you've left them, because either way, if they discard you, you're not allowed to move on and heal. You can't forget about them. You've got to be pining for them. You've got to be a shattered heap on the ground. So if they discard you and it looks like you're starting to heal, then they're going to engage in the post-separation abuse. If you leave, it's probably going to be worse, because you create a huge injury, a narcissistic injury to their ego. Yeah.
And so the majority of listeners have left or thinking of leaving. A lot of them share children with their abuser. And so they are very familiar with the post-separation abuse that happens. And so, it seems like something recently that came up this week, and almost every week, I feel like it's like, oh my gosh, they will spend $30,000 to go back to court to decrease child support payments of $50.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, to the normal human being that does not have these narcissistic traits or who are not in one of these relationships, that's like you can't even like believe that.
Yeah.
But it's not about that $50.
Exactly.
It's about the supply
winning.
harming you.
Harming you and winning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've been talking a lot about this lately, Sybil, this exact subject where people think that, you know, we'll go to mediation and, you know, we'll just make them think they're getting a better deal, and we'll use those kinds of tactics on the narcissist. Well, yeah, it may work on some if they think, you know, that they're getting a good deal, but for the most part, as you said, it's not about the money, and they will take you to court and engage you in litigation abuse, financial abuse, post-separation abuse for years, just to keep that connection with you,
Mm-hmm.
to stress you out, so you're never able to heal, and so you're thinking about them all the time, and of course to punish you, to make you spend all your money.
Mm-hmm. Right? Like you being destroyed, that's their win. That, you know, it's like when I'm trying to teach legal professionals about what does this look like, that is the end goal. It's not about the child's best interest. It's not about
Mhm.
anything else except for maintaining the connection, destroying the other person.
Yes.
And that can be, right, trying to take your kids, take full,
Yeah,
you know,
they
parenting time and custody of your
they want to,
kids.
yeah, they want to take and or destroy that which means the most to you, and of course that's our children.
Yep. And even if they have discarded you and they left, they filed, they will still do this because they need to have like you on a string. So if supply is lacking elsewhere, they, you know, they strike out in their trying to find
Yeah,
another partner. Oh, look, they can just send you a horrific something in Talking Parents or whatever your co-parenting app is, and they've
yeah,
got at least a little bit of supply.
yeah, exactly. And another purpose it serves, in keeping you on the string, other than to punish you, weirdly as it sounds, is to increase the drama with the new supply, with
Mm-hmm.
the new target. Because if you're not a narcissist, which you know neither of us are, you meet this new person, they're the love of your life, and they're telling you how crazy and horrible their ex was, and they just want it to all be over. And it's a matter of, you know, like $1 or, you know, a few dollars more in child support. And they're going, no, it's the principle of things. I'm not letting them get away with it. And this is just ongoing. And all they're talking about is their ex. Wouldn't that like drive you insane? That's what the narcissist wants. They want to triangulate their new target
Mm-hmm.
with the ex, and it's lose-lose for the new target, because if they say anything, these are my children, okay, and she's abused me in the past, or he's abused me in the past, and I'm not letting her get away with it, and you should support me, or something like that. And if they don't say anything, well, they're subjected to that, when their rational brain is going, as everyone's would be, why don't you just end this?
Mm-hmm.
So they use this to triangulate with the new supply and get them to hate each other, and it puts the narcissist on this pedestal, you know, at the top, and then they can swap the positions in that with the new target, who they've been telling, you know, the ex is so crazy and awful. They'll start to sing the praises of their
Mm-hmm.
ex, and maybe start to co-parent with them and have friendly parenting chats on the phone all the time, which will confuse the new target so much. And that's what it's all about. It's about making them now feel insecure and saying things like, my ex would never do that. And they just swap those positions all the time.
Yeah. The name of the game is confusion, or something we say all the time in the Rising Beyond community is they muddy the waters.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if, right, and the minute there's any clarity and clear and you can start seeing through the water, they're going to spin that right up and get that mud back so that you
Yeah.
really don't know what's going on. You don't know what's under there. And
Yeah.
so, yes, the new partner also is feeling confused. And then it's so true. And it's like kind of cliche and horrible, but in our culture, it's, there's like the new, like baby mama over here, and then the new girlfriend.
Yeah.
Those two wind up doing the fighting.
Yeah.
And then
It's a setup, isn't it? It's a
he just
setup.
sits back and watches
Yeah.
his work,
Yeah.
right? This is his
Popcorn.
masterpiece, right?
Yeah.
And so it is such a setup all the
Yeah.
time, a setup.
Yeah.
And it's hard because once you kind of see it and know it, the healing is really hard because none of it's been real.
Yeah.
None of it has been real. And that is heartbreaking, that scam. And
Yeah.
that's where so many kind of feel so completely broken, is in the
Yeah.
scam.
Absolutely. And I always tell my beautiful counselling clients that probably is the most painful thing, because especially if you've spent a long time, you look back at what you perceive as the good times that felt so good when
Yes.
you felt such a connection with this person. um, they weren't real, and they're not. They're not real, because, and that's painful to think, that those moments that were so special to you were based on a lie. And I don't say that clearly to hurt people, but if you don't come to that acceptance, then your trauma bonded, addicted brain, because this is an addiction to this roller coaster of chemicals, physical, biochemical, as well as psychological. Your brain is always going to be searching for its dopamine fix in those good times, in the breadcrumbs. And most of the time when we speak to our clients, and I get them to talk about the good times. Okay, tell me about these amazing times that bring you so much heartache. And clearly I'm not being facetious, because I feel that pain. But when they talk about it, it's like, well, they brought me a cup of coffee in bed last week, and they gave me a tissue when I was crying, and it felt so good. I'm like, that is overriding all of the mountains and mountains of abuse. And what they don't realize is that those days when that they perceive as amazing times that trump all manner of abuse, they only feel like rainbows and puppy dogs' tails because the lows are so rock bottom that in contrast, they feel like gold.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of, it takes time to and it's a journey to get through that pain, and you've got to grieve.
Yeah, I was going to say it's a huge grieving process of the
Yeah.
time lost, grieving the dream of what could have been, like what you were hoping
Yeah.
for.
Not them. You're not grieving the monster you now know them to
No,
be. That's for sure. Yeah.
no, you're grieving the dream that was there that could not ever come to fruition. And so that is horrifying. And what I see is kind of after that. So a lot of the survivors I work with, because I really specialize in working with the family court system, they have moved from that feel and that pain, and they are now so angry, they are spitting bullets.
Yeah.
And
That's what you
that can
do with it.
also be a place to get stuck as well, in
Yeah.
the spitting bullets, because they know they deserve to be treated better. And then they
Yeah.
see, right? It's like, how dare this person? And now they're using my child to harm me.
Hmm.
And the
Yeah.
court system's just going to let them do this,
Yeah. Yeah,
right? It's like,
absolutely. It's a double
whew.
whammy, isn't it? When, yeah, gosh, don't get me started. It's just as bad here in Australia, Sybil. The laws have just changed uh, this year, so that it's not just assumed that uh, shared parental responsibility is what's best for the children. That's what's best for the abusive parent.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
yeah, and yeah, the victim has been abused again by the system for nearly 20 years here. And I'm waiting and hoping that these new laws are going to make a difference. But if the people who are going to be ruling over this legislation, which means the 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 whole system, if one cog's out, the whole machine doesn't work. So the
Yes.
family report writers, the mediators, the ICLs, the independent children's lawyers, the barristers, the lawyers, and of course the judge, who goes to those people for their expert reports.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't understand coercive control and the insidious, covert nature of it, then the legislation is going to be useless, because the abuse is not seen, and that means a lot of the time. So that means you have to go back in history. You have to look at the dynamics of this relationship. And of
Yes.
course, you need every single cog in that machine to have a complete, comprehensive understanding of narcissistic abuse, coercive control.
Yeah. And we've seen here, so I'm in Colorado. For everyone listening, if you're new, welcome. Thank you for being here. What we've seen so far is that just like a parenting plan with a narcissist where there are loopholes, oh boy, do they find the loopholes in legislation.
Yeah.
And so even the legislation where you're like, yeah, we've got it, it's great. Nope, there are holes that can be found. And
Yeah.
what we see is that the bias is still there. So we've seen some positives. I have seen some cases that have gone so much better than they would have, because the evaluator was trained in domestic violence, child sexual abuse, child abuse, neglect, and coercive control. They've been trained. And yet there are still others that they have the training, but their beliefs about women making false reports,
Yeah.
it's still so strong
Yeah.
that the learning has not made even a dent in what they think. And so,
Yeah.
yes, like legislation needs to happen. Absolutely. Because if the laws aren't there, then there's nothing for people to follow or to give, to lead them. However,
It
there
has to
also
be.
needs to be larger changes in the belief systems of societies in general, and
Yeah.
then bigger, and we haven't figured this out yet, accountability
Oh,
for
yes.
those
Let's
in
let's part.
power.
Excuse me. Yes. Um, I was just speaking about the judge. The judge goes to the family. We call them family report writers. Where they go and interview
Mm-hmm.
everyone, the couple, the children, and everything. What do you think? The mediator tells the court, oh, they can't sort it out. So the mediator, they're asking the mediator, what do you think? And the media's saying, yeah, it needs to go to court, goes to court. And it just goes around in circles, because the judge is asking for an expert report from the family report writer, and they're asking reports from someone else. And apparently the buck doesn't stop with the judge. Someone was saying to me the other day, and I'm like, well, who the hell does it stop with?
Yeah.
Someone's got to be accountable.
Right. And judges have immunity here in
Yeah,
the States, and I assume
I know
most
that.
places. And so, like, there's no recourse for a lot of these things. And so it is sad that you have to learn how to play the game. Like, I wish, because that goes so against all the survivors I work with, right? That
Yeah,
goes completely against who they are as human beings.
uh,
They
I,
are
I,
empathetic, lovely, amazing people who it feels so against it actually adds to their moral injury, which I talk about pretty frequently,
yeah,
that they have to play this game and
oh,
be
I
manipulative, and
know.
it feels horrible. And based on the system we're in right now, you
Yeah,
have to learn how to play the game.
yeah. Never a true word was spoken. And when I'm talking to my lovely clients who are fearing court with the narcissist, and that no one will believe them, and they're so charming, Nova. Everyone's going to believe them. I'm preparing them to be manipulative, and I actually say to them, "This is going to fly in the face of your integrity."
Yes.
So you need to be mindful that your abuser is first of all, you've got a flawed system. It doesn't get personality disorders or covert abuse, narcissistic abuse. And you've got an abuser who will make stuff up
Yes.
and produce manufactured evidence. They will put their hand on the Bible, swear to tell the truth or affirm whatever they do, and then lie like a green tree snake.
Yes.
They will lie pathologically, and their pulse won't change. That's what you have to expect. They're not going to stop being a narcissist, and a system wants to get you in and out quick because they've got a backlog, okay, of a year worth or whatever it is, of people wanting to get in and use the time. And the judge is not going to, as much as, many of them probably say they do, they've got 1,000 pages of, affidavits there, and phone calls and text messages and all this sort of stuff. They ain't reading it. They're
Nope.
skimming.
Nope.
They're skimming. So I prepare them to manipulate, and that sounds terrible, not to do anything illegal. But
Nope.
when I say manipulative, I mean, if you've got family court at the moment, don't block them unless, of course, it's really, really dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But the court wants to see that, because they don't understand parental alienation. Put, a smiley face on the end of a text, or maybe, pretend that you are able, to co-parent with them to a very, minimal degree that will keep you still safe, but not allow this flawed system that does not understand parental alienation to use your lack of communication against you, because it is misconstrued. They don't understand that when a parent, a mother is, most of the time withholding her children, it's because they're protecting their child. The last thing they want to do is go through this system and all of this hell if they weren't worried about their child. Parental alienation is when the abuser is given the child by the system, who is rewarding them and punishing the victim twice. And that abuser is insidiously grooming that child to hate the non-abusive parent, and to break any kind of loving connection, or to stop a loving bond from beginning in the first place. That's parental alienation, because children's brains are still growing. They're absorbing all of this, and our brains don't stop growing till we're 25. So in those formative years, they're being conditioned to hate the victim parent. You can't get those years back. And in 20 years' time, the children are going to remember perhaps mum crying all the time and maybe yelling at the father, reacting to their manufactured conflict. And the other parent's so cool and nice, taking them to Disneyland. And the victim parent can't get those years back. That's parental alienation.
Well, and it's so hard because even the term is a tricky one. And I talk a lot about it because, yes, a parent is an abusive parent is going to try and harm that relationship and that bond. And I assume it's everywhere, but maybe not. But here, the men's rights groups have taken that term and use it like drop it, like it's candy to around. And the judges here now will be like, oh, parental alienation. Okay, the mom should not have the child then.
Yeah.
Right. Not
Absolutely.
knowing that the child doesn't want to be with the other parent because they have no bond. They're scared. They've never
They're
developed
walking
an
on
attachment.
eggshells.
And so it's so tricky. There's a new, I don't know if I like this either. There's new language that I want to say Emma Katz came out with, and I don't know if I like it or not. It is child and mother sabotage. Because, and right now here, we've learned too that we've started really using coercive control as our language. Guess who's trying to rebrand that?
The
abusers.
The abusers.
And so we just have to know, as mental health professionals, which a lot of us in our community don't know, legal professionals, we just need to be aware that we need to look at those patterns, no matter the language, no matter the term. What is the pattern that's happening? If it started, so this is what I've talked about with a lot of people, is if it starts during the divorce, like all of a sudden the mom is not wanting the children to go there, but it just started at the divorce, or vice versa, it is likely a legal thing. You will see this trying to harm that parental relationship with the safe, protective parent, even when you're still together. You will see that. You will see the patterns and that grooming before they're separated. And nobody, like we said, they're just getting like sped through the system. Nobody's looking at the patterns. Nobody's looking at those long-term patterns that are there the whole darn time.
So true, Sybil. And that's why if you want to enforce this legislation, then it's just a matter of necessity. You have to go back in time. You can't base your decisions on what happens the day that couple separates. Only 4 to 6%, I believe, of cases get to court. So that means they're not high conflict. There's a power imbalance, and there's one abuser and one person reacting to that abuse. Now, as you so beautifully put, Sybil, those dynamics are starting off from the second the child leaves the womb. There's a dynamic such as a scapegoat child, the golden child. They're pitted against each other. The abusive parent will rip the child, the baby, out of the other parent's arms if it looks like they're enjoying that parent's company. That will create a wound. They'll become envious. They'll set, I talk about this a lot in my book, they'll set up while they're together the victim parent by inciting an argument, baiting them, prodding them, poking them, until the victim does what any normal person would do. And maybe they yell or they start crying and they're frustrated, frantic, and that abusive parent will either do it in front of the children, or they'll call the children out of the rooms and go, look at your mother. Look, Okay, look, let's go, guys. Let's go get some ice cream together. Did you hear them yelling at her, yelling at me, or, whichever parent it is? And they will manipulate the children to think that that abusive parent is the one who is the calm, cool one, and the other one's the crazy one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is reinforced by the reward that parent gives them. That's just one, little
Right.
thing they do. Yeah,
And
and
it's
this
such a
goes on their entire
common,
life.
it's like, gosh, where is this like handbook? Like, I didn't get the handbook of how to
Yeah,
be a narcissist really well. Like, I didn't get that handbook, but you can see it because these things, even if your situation is a little bit different, there's commonalities. There will
yes,
be that manufactured crazy. They will try to do
yeah,
it in front of your family. They'll try and get it to be like that in front of the judge, in front
yeah,
of, whomever at the school, because
yeah,
if their narrative works that you are the crazy one, you already kind of believe you're crazy. Like, you already believe it.
yeah, yeah.
Then you're still stuck. You're going to still be stuck in that pattern. So,
Yeah, and
ugh.
if people are turning away from you, which is so normal because of the narcissist smear campaign,
Mm-hmm.
they want to isolate you from everyone and make sure no one believes you. It's a preemptive strike to make sure that you can't expose them. But you kind of alluded there, Sybil, to a strategy that every narcissist uses during the relationship, and of course in post-separation abuse, which is a strategy that we call the dog whistle. We've got all these weird and
Yes, yes,
wonderful
yes,
terms.
yes.
Yeah. So for your listeners, the dog whistle, if you've seen, the dog training shows, it's something that the dogs hear, but it's inaudible to human beings. So that's why we call it the dog whistle. So the example that I use in my book is when you're going out with your loved one, and you're so excited, you've spent all night getting glamorous and looking amazing, and right before you get out of that cab to go into this party with hundreds of people, the narcissist, your abuser, goes, "You look fat in that dress. Why did you wear that? And no one at this party likes you. Okay, so can you just not embarrass me?" Or something like that, along those lines, right before you step out of the cab. So you get to the party, the narcissist has the time of their life, getting you drinks, trying to get you up to dance, and everyone's going, "What's wrong with her? Why is she looking at you so nasty? She doesn't know how lucky she is to have
Mm-hmm.
you." And they're seeing you as the ungrateful bore, and the actual abuser as someone who would do anything for you, but they didn't see or hear the setup that happened 2 seconds before they walked in the door. And you can apply that to
Yes.
so
So
many different
many
situations.
situations. We have
Yeah.
some that we use in the community as like our examples, because which some, unfortunately, I can't even share because there's gag orders and things like that in these cases. So won't share those. But I wanted to give you an opportunity because I think your work is great too, as we're kind of ending. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Sure. Fake Love, Understanding and Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, published by Harpercollins, is my book, and I'm very, very proud of it. It's a best-selling practical self-help book of 2023 in Australia. So that's huge for me, and
Yeah.
it's available in your country. It's available worldwide. But I wrote Fake Love not as a textbook, but I wanted it to be more like a handbook, a companion for victims. It is so easy to read, and it's about, it tells the story of a victim in a non-fiction way, because it is non-fiction, and uses everything that happened to her. I use everything that happened to her to explain narcissistic abuse in how you were picked, how you were chosen, how you were love bombed, and that you was set up, and it's not your fault, and how the narcissist manipulated you into this. And I go through everything. A lot of people ask themselves, am I the narcissist? Because they've been taught that they're the abuser. So I go into a lot of detail about that. Trauma bonding, in why did I stay? I've called a chapter. The divorcing a narcissist, co-parenting with a narcissist, children of narcissists. These are all different chapters that happened to this one person, but will apply to you no matter what sort of abusive relationship you've been in. This book will be so validating. And of course, at the end, there I've given my readers 13 concrete strategies to escape the abuse if you're still with your abuser, and to heal. But I think particularly with the whole book, believe me, will benefit everyone. But I think with the post-separation abuse that your listeners are going to, I really think that the divorcing a narcissist, children of narcissists, and in inverted commas, co-parenting with a narcissist will be invaluable. So yes, it's out there now, and very proud of it.
Yes. So you all know we have all of the details and links to all the things will be in the show notes where you're listening to this. So any of your platforms, they'll be there. Nova, thank you so much for joining me. I'm so excited we're connected because knowing someone far across the pond, far across the world, like the complete opposite side of the world, is doing good work, it's always helpful to have those connections.
Yeah. Oh, look, I am so just thrilled that you asked me to be here, because I can see, hear, and feel your passion, which is there alongside mine. I'm so passionate, and that comes out of my book and my podcast. But yes, I'm here in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, and it's like you're in the next room, and that's what I love about this global interconnectedness. It's brought us together, and hopefully we'll be chatting lots more in the near future. So yes, thank you so much to your listeners, and for you, Sybil, for having me.
Yes, absolutely. I'm excited to keep the connection going. And for all of you listening, thank you as always for being here. You are the reason I hop on the mic. And the benefit to me is I get to meet all these great people, but I'm hoping that you found benefit as well. So we will catch you on the next episode of the Rising Beyond podcast.